Welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Regular Guy Barbecue, brought to you by CSC Entertainment. Now we've got a real hot weekend this weekend. We've got something special just for you guys. So let's go on over to Frank and Cart and see what we got, shall we? Are you guys ready? It's barbecue time. We've got brisket. We're going to be doing brisket. Now in part one of this video, we're going to show you the preparations of how we do a brisket. Maybe it'd be a little different than what you do, maybe not. Maybe you can pick up a tip, maybe you can tell me a few things. If you've got some comments to leave, to give me some pointers, please leave them in the comments. Also, don't forget, if you like what you see here, subscribe to the channel, like it, like the video, and don't forget to mash the notification button so you can tell every time we post a new video, right? Let's get to it, shall we? We got our sleeves rolled up and ready to go. Now this is about a 16.5-pound brisket that we bought at one of our local stores. This is a choice cut. Now we bought choice cut. You'll see in one of the other videos we do a little discussion about how choice cut versus a regular cut, small price difference, why we like this one better versus the regular cuts. All right. Now you can see there's a pretty fair amount of fat on this thing. When I buy a brisket, I'm going to look for marbling fat. See how there's marbling fats in there? That's where your flavor is going to come from. That's where the juices are going to come from when you low and slow one of these briskets. Now some of this thicker fat, like you poke on this, it's like knocking on a door. We want to remove that. Why? Well, you'll lose all your fat flavors. You'll lose all your juices. Now, you're not going to render this fat out of this brisket and into your meat. It's just not going to happen, okay? So we're going to remove that. Now this is relatively simple. You can pretty much figure out how to do this. Look at this, some of it just falls right off. We don't need that anyway. But we want to try to get through some of this thicker fat, some of this heavier fat. You can leave some behind. You can leave this all on if you wanted to. I like to remove it. There's a couple reasons why. I want to remove some of this thicker, heavier fat because I want my dry rubs and my marinades to penetrate the meat. I don't want to flavor the fat. I want to flavor the meat, right? That's the good part. The other reason is when you get to done cooking this thing and you go to carve it, what do you do with all these big fatty parts that are on there? First thing everybody does, chucks them. Why? Because they're not fun to eat and they taste like crap. So we're going to cut them off. Save ourselves the step later on. Trust me on this one, you don't have to do this, but if you do, you'll be thanking yourself, guarantee it. So this is a pretty cut and dry step. Cut and dry. Here I am trimming. Cut. Nothing too fancy about it. I always try to cut at a pretty steep angle or a low angle. Part of the reason why is I want to get the fat off but not damage the meat. Now look at this. Look at how thick this nasty hard fat is. That's some nasty stuff. I don't want to eat that. I don't want to try to cut that off when I'm trying to carve this thing up, serving slices to everybody when it's time to eat. So I'm just going to cut it all off. Now you're probably going to lose on this 16-pounder here we've got. We're probably going to lose 2 pounds, 3 pounds. And if it was only this easy to lose weight in real life, huh? Just trim the fat. I'd have a long ways to go. By the time I get done, I could be on the lollipop kid.
I mean, you can, but it might hurt.
Yeah, it might hurt a little bit. If I trimmed the fat, I'd be a lollipop kid in 2 months. Anyway, you can see, you don't have to do this all in one shot. We got a pretty sharp knife, but it's rather big. Boning knives work the best for this. I don't have a boning knife available for me right now, so I'm using what I got. You see, look down in here. You can see how thick that stuff is, and it actually runs into the point on this. Okay, so as you can see, we've removed most of the fat on this side. There's a little bit buried in the meat here, and a little bit buried down deep in the point there that I'm not going to cut out, and mostly because I just don't want to, deform this brisket. It's because it's a nice brisket. I just don't want to destroy it or make it all funny looking or stretch it out.
Shredding it probably gets rid of
yeah,
it.
That'll probably be the end of it right there. So that's what our meat side looks like. And we can see we've left a little bit of fat there, but most of it's gone. Except on that side. Let me turn this around quick. Quick look at this side. Yeah, we gotta trim this side too. Yeah, you can see that's pretty thick stuff. Now, I don't care how long you cook this thing for. I don't care what temperature you cook it at. There is no way you can tell me that you're going to render that into this. It's just not going to happen. So I won't leave it on. I'll cut it off. It's like carving a turkey when it's done. Kind of looks like it. How white is that? Look at how thick that is. And you're going to have this on just about every piece of brisket you have, which is why this is cheap meat by comparison to some of your ribeyes and your sirloins and your prime ribs, and all that stuff's a better cut of meat, which is why we low and slow this stuff, right? Because this is a cheap meat. When I cook a meat like this, and I'm going to low and slow these things, I like to put the fat cap down. A lot of people will say, well, no, you got to leave the fat cap up because it'll render down to the meat. Well, we've had that discussion already. I like to leave the fat cap down, and part of the reason I do that is when I'm low and slowing something, this fat cap, which you're probably not going to eat anyway, is going to protect the good meat on the other side. So we let the burning happen out here if it's going to happen. If we got Nazis coming out of the charcoal trying to shoot holes in our meat, the fat cap's here to protect it, right? Right. So we are going to trim it. We're just not going to take it all off. Yeah, you can see there we're already getting down into the meat, so this isn't real super thick on this side. We'll just take a little bit out the corner. Oh, I can't do that left-handed. You can see this fat cap's pretty thick, just like it was on the other side, right?
She's thick.
She's thick. Baby got back, junk in the trunk, and a whole lot of fatty going on. Okay. I'm going to intentionally get down to the bottom here, down to the meat, and try to just show you what this is going to look like. Maybe I won't because it just keeps going and going. And it's like the Energizer fat. You can see that's a lot of fat. Okay. Now I'm going to stop right there. You can see how there's a little bit of dark color coming through there. That's going to be down to our meat. Okay. I'm going to leave that thin layer there. We still get some of that fatty flavors, which is good. We still get that protection from the heat, which is good. We just don't have to try chewing through this when it comes time to eat this good stuff, right? Yeah. Now, one point I will bring up, one thing I'm going to bring up about this brisket. Now, you can buy brisket several ways. You can buy just the point. You can buy a whole brisket. You can buy just the flat, okay? You barbecue gurus out there, you can put a comment below that says, you dummy, you don't know what you're talking about. Burnt ends. Comes from the flat. That's down here. So we want to make sure we take care of this side of our meat, because that's the pitmaster's favorite part is the burnt ends. That's the privilege of the pitmaster. Pitmaster likes his burnt ends. Me, I like my burnt ends, my burnt middles, I like my burnt tops. I just like brisket. Hopefully when you get a chance to do this at your barbecue, you'll like brisket too. Now, a lot of you out there might be thinking, well, holy Christ, I went to my store, brisket's expensive. Yes, it is, for a low and slow meat. When you compare it to like a pork shoulder, you're probably looking at, I would just run us about $50 probably for this 16-pound brisket. But think about that for a minute, okay? You buy an 8-pound shoulder, it costs you about 17, maybe 20 bucks. At least here in our area it does. You go buy this brisket, 16 pounds for 50 bucks. You're thinking, holy shizzle, biscuit, is that expensive? Well, if you try it and you make it and you do it right, or even do it close, you're going to understand why brisket is so popular. You're going to understand why the restaurant charges you more for this, and it's far more enjoyable. Yeah? Yeah. As you can see here now, we're probably getting down to about the end of where we're going to want to trim this brisket. I could do a little bit more. You know, it's not critical to do more. I think I'm going to be pretty content with where this is at. We're still going to have a little bit of that fat for flavor, a little bit of fat protection, and a little bit of fat we'll have to trim off once we serve it. But this gives you a really good idea of kind of the steps you do to take care of one of these guys. All right? The side of the meat, it'll be tender. All right, we're on to our next step. We've got it all trimmed and we're all ready to go with that. Now, as you'll see in a lot of our other videos, when it comes to low and slow meats, or meats that we have a little bit of trouble maybe keeping moist as we cook them because they cook for so long, we're going to marinate this thing. All right, so we're going to get ready to marinate this thing. We got our 5-gallon cooler that we bought at an auction for about $5, I think, whatever it was. So we're going to put our brisket right inside. All right. Now I thought about this long and hard. He said long and hard. I tried using 5-gallon pails, you know, scrub them out, bleach them, food safe them, that kind of thing. But especially in the summertime, you can't keep it cold. Now, I can't fit this in my fridge under normal circumstances. My wife will shoot me. So, next best thing we can do is get a cooler like this, put our marinade in, fill it full of ice, we're good to go. It'll be good in there for over 24 hours, no problem. So, what are we going to marinate with this weekend? Well, we're going to be doing some barbecue sauce. We're going to be making another video. And that's going to be based with root beer and maple syrup. So, guess what we're going to add to our marinade? Root beer and maple syrup. So we're going to start with our root beers. Alright, so we're getting down here. This is our 4th bottle of root beer we're going to put in. I figured you guys didn't want to watch me open 4 of them because that's just silly.
Didn't struggle with the last one.
Of course, my hand got a little wet and now I can't get the cap off. Alright, there we go. So we got 4 bottles of root beer in there. That should be a good start. Now, what else did we bring out here for our magic juices today?
Magic mixture.
Worcestershire sauce. How do you pronounce it?
Worcestershire.
Worcestershire. I never could figure that out, and I can't get this one open either. So this sauce, as you know, is very good on beef. Anytime you're making beef, even if you're making burgers, this is something that will enhance flavor of beef. Now, since we've got a 16.5-pound shoulder we got in there, we're going to add quite a bit. We're probably going to add 3 or 4 tablespoons to this. Why? I don't know. That looks about right, don't you think? Sure it does. Now we got some other ingredients we're going to put in as well. We pre-cut these just because I don't want to bore you to tears again by cutting things up. But what we've got here is we've got some apples that were starting to get a little soft. So we cut them up. We've got some chunks of onions. You know, nice loose cut. They're rough cut because we don't need to have them finely cut. And we've got probably about 1/4 pound of ginger. And again, ginger is something that is just amazing with beef. So we cut those up ahead of time. Throw them all in the bucket. Yeah, there's a couple for the mascot. All right, no big deal. So we're going to throw those in as well. And the other things we're going to use are pretty standard stuff. We've got cracked ground pepper. We'll probably put a tablespoon of that in. Unless this grinder doesn't work, then we'll be putting in a little less. That's probably pretty good. Now, here again is another one. Usually ginger. What goes good with ginger? Lime. Alright, so maple syrup. That's going to be our key ingredient in here, along with the root beer. Now, I would add the entire bottle just because I think the more flavor the better. But I want to save some of this for our barbecue sauce. So we've added probably a half, maybe a little more than half of that bottle. And that is a unknown size bottle because they don't tell me the size. That's okay. Alright, now, last thing we're going to do, make sure our marinade stays nice and cold, make sure our beef stays nice and cold, so it's ready to go, and it's time to cook, because we're going to add ice. Now this will serve twofold. Obvious one, this is going to keep this cold while we're ready for it. But just as important is instead of adding water to a marinade, we're just going to let the ice melt and do the thing. It's going to mix up all the... Alright, we're back. So, it's the next day and we've had just a crazy day today. We got together with some friends, did some auctioning, and we're running a little behind. As you can see, it's getting a little dark. But that's okay, because we're getting ready to do our dry rub. Are you guys ready for dry rub? I know you are. So, we're going to add some spices to our bowl. And we've got a lot of them we're going to add. Just because I like to do it this way, I think a lot of these things really help the flavor of a brisket. So, we're going to add some. So, we're going to put in probably 2 tablespoons of our garlic powder. That's measured right, isn't it? Perfect, just on the button. You know I don't measure. Here's one thing we're going to do with this, because we've got such a sweet with the root beer and the maple syrup that we're putting in this, we're going to add a little heat. So here's some cayenne pepper. We're going to probably go maybe a teaspoon, a little bit more, maybe a teaspoon and a half. A lot of different flavors we're going to be using. Here's some basil we're going to throw in. Again, for the Vegematics, got to have some greens, right? Got to have our greens. And to stick with the theme of green, sort of, oregano. And again,
St. Patrick's Day.
oh yeah, that's right, I forget. You know, about a teaspoon of that, maybe a little bit more. Here's some dill seed, that'll help, right? Maybe a teaspoon of dill seed. Got all them veggies in there for everybody, right? Yeah, no. Here's our crushed ground black pepper, or peppercorn. You guys know all about that one. We use that all the time. And we're going to try to get a tablespoon in there. This grinder's seen better days. She's wearing down a little bit, getting a little thin, but still does the job. One thing you'll notice that I'm not putting in here, and I'm probably going to get a lot of heat for this, is salt. Why? I don't think we need it, and I don't think it's good for you. Usually need it for flavor, but a little curry powder. Why? I like curry powder. A little teaspoon, maybe a little teaspoon there. And here we've got some coriander. Come on, coriander. Where are you at? Oh, coriander don't want to come out, so we're going to have to open up the thing a little bit better. That's all right. There we go. Come on, coriander. And again, teaspoon or so. No big deal. Marjoram leaves. More greens for the veggies. About a teaspoon, teaspoon and a half of that. Here comes our paprika. Now we're going to add quite a bit of paprika to this, probably about 3 tablespoons. And part of the reason why is you guys know how paprika gives you a real nice color, that dark brown you're looking for when you're doing it slow and slow. So we're going to add quite a bit of that. And you know we put some ginger in our marinade, so we're going to add about a teaspoon of ginger just to go with that. We've got some turmeric, again, a little bit for flavor, a little bit for color. Probably a couple tablespoons of that. And we're going to add, actually, I got an idea. This is a red pepper flake. We're going to add about maybe a tablespoon and a half, 2 tablespoons of that. Because again, we're looking for a little bit of color on the outside. That'll help with that as well as it'll help with the heat. So this is our garlic and pepper. You guys are familiar with this one. This is the one we got from the Amish. We've used this in a lot of videos. We're going to try to use some of that up. So this is one of the reasons also I'm staying away from the salt, is because I don't want to add salt, and then this has salt in it. So we'd be doubling up on the salt. Not so much. So we're going to add maybe a couple tablespoons of that. You know what? We're going to put it all in there. You know why?
It's Tuesday.
Yeah, because it's Tuesday. No, because that's getting a little empty. It's getting a little older. It's been around for a while. So we're all done with that. Get it out of here. I believe that's the last ingredient that we're going to need. So now, as you guys know, you take your dry rub and you whip them up and whip them up and whip them up. We got a couple of lumpies in there that we're going to mash up. If you've ever used your brown sugars, you know what that's all about. That's not looking too bad. I got a few lumps in there, but that's all right. They'll blend in real nicely when we go ahead and get this thing covered up and ready for tomorrow. We got to put it to bed yet tonight. And we're going to let the, like I say, we're going to let this dry rub sit on there overnight. You don't have to do that. I find that it tends to penetrate the meat a little bit better. So we're going to leave it on there overnight just because we want to make sure that it does its business properly. You know, but I would recommend highly that you go with at least a 4-hour window for having your dry rub on before you actually start to cook. Let's see what we got here, shall we? We get our marinated beef brisket. And as you can see, we've still got a ton of ice in there, so we know it's nice and cold. We also can see that some of them ice is melted. Oh, come here, you. There we go. Put this one on the yard. There we are. All right. You guys remember we had all that garlic and all those apples? You can see apples are still in there. All that good stuff is in there. Oh, yeah. There she comes. Look at the color difference in that compared to what it was yesterday. You can see all those things that we put in our marinade really did a nice job coloring that up for us, huh? Now we're going to save our marinade. And I'll show you, once we start to cook in the next video, why we're saving the marinade. Alright? Now in the meantime, holy cow, that thing's actually a little bit frozen on the end. Woo! She got done cold in there. It was down in the 40s here last night. On the outskirts where we were earlier today at that auction. It was actually down in the 30s last night. I got a little frost. Just a bit of fat I'm just going to trim off here. There we go. I didn't find a boning knife yet, but I did find a fillet knife. We're using that. So here's a couple little pointers we're going to try to use today. Maybe they'll work for you. We're going to try them out. I've never actually done it this way, but I've watched others do this way. We're going to give it a shot. You remember how we left some of the fat cap on here just to protect our meats? We're going to take our knife and we're going to score it. And what our idea behind this is this will cut through that fat cap, let those flavors get in, yet it won't destroy the fat cap where it doesn't do its job as a protector and a moisturizer. You guys know about moisturizers, right? And we're putting eczema on here, a little face cream. No, that's the right one. Sorry, I get confused. Now, the other tip I'm going to give you, again, this is one I learned from somebody else, and Barbecue Pit Boys, we'll give them a little credit for that one because they deserve it. We need a binding agent to hold our dry rub on. So what are we using? Mustard. Did you say mustard? I said mustard. Why mustard? Why not? We just want a thin layer of mustard on here. And again, what this will do is it'll act like a binding agent to hold our dry rub on our meat while it's sleeping tonight. But more importantly than that, to me, oh my goodness sakes, it's heavy.
Glad I suggested that pan for you.
No kidding, this is a great idea. This is also going to add another layer of flavor for us, and it's going to help the dry rub.
You're not going to score that side?
No, not only the fat cap side.
Why not that side too?
Because the fat cap isn't on this side. The meat's already here. We don't need to get down to the meat because the meat's already here, right?
Okay.
Does that make sense to you guys?
Just
Makes
making
sense to
sure
me?
for the audience.
Absolutely. We don't want to leave anybody in the dark. Although we're going to be in the dark in about 15 minutes, so we got to hurry, right? Funny guy. You're a funny guy, Sully. You guys can fill in the rest of that one from an old movie. So we've got our mustard on there now. I'm going to take these gloves off because mustard hands are not a good thing, even though we're going to be getting the mustard again anyway. All right, so here's our dry rub. And you guys know about how to do this. I'm not going to bore you with details. Here's our dry rub. And I don't know if I made enough, but we're going to try to cover every square inch with the dry rub. That'll give us that flavor, that'll give us that color, that'll give us lottery winning numbers. No, that doesn't do that.
If only.
If only, yes, absolutely. Get it down in the nooks and crannies and crevices. Yeah, all right. First brown on one side, then turn over. Now this is where it's going to be a little more important to actually rub our dry rub. We want to push it down in all those little score marks that we made on this fat cap side to help get that flavor down in there, to help get that color down in there. Losing some. Look at how nice it turns the color. Yeah, that's going to look great tomorrow, ain't it?
That's going to taste even better.
It's going to taste like $1,000,000, or at least $25, $29, which is about half of what we paid for it. So, got a little bit of a slant here. We got to kind of. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Make it rain.
Make it rain your stuff onto your meat. Change angles because my hands don't bend that way. All right, so there's our dry rub. We want a little bit short, but we'll be okay. Here's a little more.
You didn't do the salt. Look at that.
Me. Yeah, we don't do it for ratings. We just do it because we like doing it. All right, so there's our dry rub on there. All ready to go. And usually when I make dry rub, I make a little bit extra. Today I didn't because I didn't measure and I didn't know how much I'd need. That's okay.
We don't measure around these parts.
Measuring's for fools. We're gonna put this thing to bed. I finally made enough room in the refrigerator. My wife won't shoot me for taking up all the room in there. Where we're gonna cover this up. We're gonna put it in the fridge overnight. I'll be up before the sun, I hope, to start the slow and low. So we'll be back.